I want to talk you through a fairly recent conversation I had with a potential client. And this is a conversation that happens again and again and again and again and again and again and again. So it starts with a client opening their laptop, bringing up the page of notes that they've been making after weeks and weeks of talking to other individuals in the podcasting space. And this document has words in it like content pillars and publishing cadence, audience touch points. Now the thing is, without even looking at this document, I know I've seen this document before. It exists in some form on the machines of pretty much every client I've ever come across and spoken to. It's certainly a document that can be found on the machine of pretty much every client I've inherited from somebody else that's come to me out of frustration of not getting the results with another podcasting person. At exactly that moment when they start talking around this document, that nobody has yet told that person what's actually going wrong with their podcast. Because you can't fix a strategy problem with any kind of content idea. Content pillars is not a strategy for your podcast, yet every single podcast expert on LinkedIn pontificates about them week after week after week. Content pillars are the illusion of strategy. This is what being everyone's second podcast consultant looks like. And frankly, I love it because I get all the credit for fixing it. Welcome to B2B Podcasting Insights with me, Neil Velio, the founder of Podknows Podcasting, a UK-based podcasting agency designed to help you get the best from podcasting for your brand, business, or solopreneur adventure. So here's the common problem. Your show is not converting. It doesn't matter what you do, what kind of content you try, the kinds of guests you book, the kind of format you apply. Just week after week after week, it doesn't get you the results that you want. And despite the fact that you are publishing weekly, your instinct is to ramp up your publishing even more, maybe daily, maybe multiple times a week. But let me talk you through what that actually is. It would be like a shop that cannot sell any products, extending its opening hours in the hope that if we're just around the time that people are going by, they might feel like popping in for a change. But the truth is, the shop that can never sell its products is not selling its products because its opening hours are not specific enough for its ideal customers. It's because what it's selling doesn't meet the needs of its ideal customers. But the thing is, action feels better than uncertainty, doesn't it? Uncertainty is a really uncomfortable place to exist. If you're doing something, it makes you feel like you're getting closer, forward, closer to the problem being solved. Especially when you've already paid someone for their expertise and you're still seeing that nothing is changing. And the problem with this is that my beloved industry, the podcasting industry, certainly coaches within the podcasting industry, they tend to offer production solutions to what are strategy problems. And that's because they're easier to sell. Sitting down with somebody for anything up to 8 hours to really map up what the problem is, go through it, and get clear on an ideal outcome, that's a bit harder than just saying to somebody, do you know what? We'll edit more of your content for you and release more often. Here are our prices for editing. Here are our prices for production. Here's our pricing for YouTube video. Here's our pricing for social media management. We'll make you more audio. We'll get you better guests. We'll help you with booking those. We'll help you with repurposing the content that you're making. And none of that answers the actual question, the question that you should be asking. What's wrong with what we've already put out there? Of course, again, every podcasting expert you'll find within a 20 pixel radius of LinkedIn will be saying consistency is key. Keep consistency. Consistency, consistency. That is the answer to a winning podcast. Consistency. The problem is, you can be extremely consistent at doing the wrong thing. And the less I say about content pillars, the better, probably. I've been guilty of using the words content pillars in the past. Yes, they sound great. It sounds like you know what you're talking about. It's marketing talk. But what exactly are content pillars? Can anyone explain to me how a content pillar has actually moved a buying decision forward? And of course, every single person with a podcast has asked the same question on Google: how often should I publish my B2B podcast? And got the AI response: you'll get 14 different answers every single time you ask it. Now, I want to be really clear with you. I have never once seen any client ever get better results from publishing more. Now, let me be clear about this. Some podcasts I've worked with have gone from doing monthly to fortnightly and then to weekly. Yes, they have, but not to get results. It's because they're enjoying the results they're getting and they want to put more stuff out because they now have the resources, the time, and the enthusiasm to make more content. And who am I to stand in the way of someone making more content? Content is great. The more touch points we have with clients, the better. It's much better to have 18 episodes in an RSS feed than 8 episodes in an RSS feed. Granted, yeah, 100%. But getting from 8 episodes to 18 episodes in an RSS feed is not suddenly going to put money in the bank. Let's be clear about that. And in those cases, when you don't have the enthusiasm, the resources, and the time to make a weekly podcast, I want to give you permission to consider stepping back. If you're weekly, think about fortnightly. If you're fortnightly, think about monthly. If you're monthly, think about quarterly. I want to talk to you about this podcast called Hardcore History, hosted by a podcaster named Dan Carlin. Now, Dan Carlin would be considered a hugely successful podcaster. He has millions of listeners to his podcast and has had so for about 10 years. And how often do you think Dan Carlin publishes? Weekly? Quarterly? Monthly? No. Dan Carlin publishes Hardcore History episodes when he's ready to. His episodes don't see the light of day until he's so happy with what he's produced, he wants to put it out in the world and is indeed excited to do so. And the thing is, Dan Carlin is properly planning his episodes. He's thinking about what he wants to cover. He's thinking about what production techniques he's going to put in there. He's thinking about how he's going to start structuring his episodes. And that's what you, as somebody who is publishing content for a B2B podcast and not seeing the results you want, need to start doing. That's not going to help you because less is more. That's a saying, not a strategy. The reason that's going to help you is because that planning gap, which is that time that you get back by not producing, it's going to give you more time to prepare something that people actually want to consume. 5 minutes of getting together with your team and asking the question, what is this episode going to be for? That's worth way more than 3 extra episodes being published just because you think you should. See, this is the thing. Frequency has never been the deciding variable when it comes to a podcast working or not working. Intent has always been the deciding factor. More frequency being thrown at the wrong kind of content is simply a case of a larger library of content that is not getting results. So here's what I want you to take away from this. The questions that you need to be thinking about when it comes to your own B2B podcasting production journey. How often should we publish episodes is probably the last question you need to ask. Before it, you need to ask these questions. 1. What is the podcast's commercial job? And I'm not talking about authority, I'm not talking about thought leadership. That's all vanity metric stuff. I'm talking about things like shortening sales conversations, pre-educating our prospects before they even get on a call with us, building belief and overcoming objections before even being in contact. We talked all about this in episode 3. Go to podknows.co.uk/B2BPI to scroll back and find that episode. The second question that you need to ask is what we're publishing doing that job? Can anyone point to a deal that has come off the back of us producing these episodes? Does the sales team use our podcast? And if nobody knows the answer to those, then the frequency, the cadence, how often you publish episodes is completely bloody irrelevant, mate. The amount of times I've had a client or a prospect turn around to me and say, nobody seems to know the answer to that question, Neil. Fascinating. Thank you for asking it. 9 times out of 10, that solves the problem before we even start working together, and sometimes leads to us not working together because they're quite comfortable knowing what they need to do to fix things. And for me, that's great. Once that job of the podcast is confirmed, then the frequency really answers itself. And that answer is, for those of you that are not keeping up, as often as you can, properly resource it to plan it, prepare it, and publish it to the best possible standard that this thing is going to do its job. Its commercial job, not its ego-fulfilling job, but the job it does that sees money going into your business's bank account. So yeah, weekly if you can, every 3 weeks if that's a bit too much. So again, we're not talking about numbers of time here, we're talking about intent. Founder FAQ. So this is the part of the show where I answer questions from you, the busy founder who wants to get better results from your B2B podcast. And this one is from Natasha. And Natasha runs a B2B consultancy in Sheffield. Natasha says, I've recorded 6 guest episodes. I've sent each guest the link when it went live. None of them shared it anywhere. Not one post, not one story, nothing. What am I doing wrong? I feel like we might have had this similar kind of question before on this show, but just in case we haven't, here's the answer that nobody in podcasting, certainly not on LinkedIn, is ever going to say out loud to you. Probably nothing. And I realize that that doesn't help them to sell their repurposing clips, packages, or their consultancy services where they're helping you to book guests. This is just what guests do. They're selfish. They have their own egos. The thing is, your guest agreed to come on your podcast. That's it. That's where their accountability ends. They showed up. They spoke for 20 to 45 minutes. They felt good about it. They would maybe felt like they were doing you a favor. You might feel like the opposite. You might feel like you were gracing them with the honor of being on your show. Everybody's ego's involved in this. After they'd recorded with you, they went back on with their normal lives. They might not have even enjoyed the experience. So if they didn't enjoy the experience for whatever reason, maybe you didn't ask them good enough questions, maybe they felt like you didn't know what you were talking about and them sharing your content makes them look like an idiot too, who knows? We're not inside their head. We can't do their thinking for them. But what I can tell you is this. Their day does not contain a top priority slot, which is called Share Natasha's podcast episode. Hate to break it to you, they got a million other things going on in their lives before they even think about that. And here's the part that really stings. The bigger their following, which I'm guessing might be pretty significant considering you booked them to be on your podcast in the first place because, let's be real, you wanted a slice of their followers to listen to your podcast so you could grab and steal some of that audience. The bigger the following, the worse this gets. People with large audiences are on podcasts constantly. And so what happens when you record a podcast with them? You're one of many that week. And every single week, probably dozens of podcasters are sending them emails with links to share the content. You are not special to these people. And this is not personal, it's just marketing. It's no more valid to get butthurt about somebody not sharing your podcast episode than it is for you to not get asked to speak on a TED Talk or at a conference or on television. So 2 things you can try to solve this. First of all, make it absolutely embarrassingly easy. Don't send them the link, send them the caption, the clip, the hashtags, the social media posts, the email newsletter segment, whatever it is that you want them to share, do the work for them. Then, when they're on a quiet day where they're struggling to think about content to publish, they've got you as a resource. Remove every single possible excuse or reason they have to delay. Some of them are still not going to share it, but at least you've given yourself a fighting chance of being one of the ones who's more likely to be considered than the others who didn't bother. Secondly, and most importantly, stop building your content marketing strategy around something you cannot control. And the thing you cannot control is what other human beings do, what other human beings prioritize in their content marketing. Your guests are guests. That's it. They're not part of your marketing team. Your show's distribution is your own responsibility, and there are far smarter ways of getting distribution for your podcast than relying on unpaid marketers. And if you want to talk to me about how we can help people like you to grow your podcast audience in a more intentional way with ideal listeners that are ready to buy from you, get in touch. Podknows.co.uk, that's podknows.co.uk is where you'll find the contact page. All right, this episode's quick tip then. Your episode title is not a book title. It's just a piece of copy. Write it as if it's the only thing that a potential decision maker that could do business with you will read before they decide whether your show gets 30 seconds of their time today, because that's all you're looking to get them to spend to begin with. Earn those first 30 seconds, then you might earn the first minute. After that first minute, you might then earn the next 2 minutes. After those next 2 minutes, you might then earn the full episode being played. Here's what you don't want to write in your title. Episode 12, anything. Get rid of the episode and get rid of the number. You've got a field for that in all podcast hosting dashboards. Use it. If you want to have an easy way to refer to your episodes in audio, make sure you've got a podcast website where you can send them to the link. Use a bit.ly, something like that, vanity URL. You could then say bobspodcast.com/12, which is the vanity URL, which redirects to the full-length URL of your podcast episodes page on its own website. Easy, huh? Don't pollute your RSS feed with episode numbers. There's already a field for that. Apple Podcasts and Spotify are doing that for you. Once you've done all that, ask yourself honestly, all right, now that I've read this title, if I didn't know me, would I click on it? If the answer is probably not, but it might grow on them, rewrite it and rewrite it again until you get to the point where you go, goddamn right I would click on this. Your title does all the selling before your audio or video even gets half a chance. Don't blow it. If you found this content useful, then I'm going to blow your mind right now, because we can solve this problem really quickly if you book one of my diagnostics. Go to podknows.co.uk/diagnostic. That's podknows.co.uk/diagnostic. This is one single session. It's you and me sitting down, figuring out what job your podcast has within your wider business and figuring out how we can connect those dots more cleanly so that you get the results that you want from investing your time and energy into this thing. Well, I hope you found this episode useful. If you did, please feel free to share it with another B2B founder or company that you know is making their own podcast and might really enjoy some of the tips and tricks in this episode. Until the next time, best of luck with your B2B podcasting.